The plates were still warm when they broke down the door. That was how Detective Mark Latham described it, his first sentence to the press, standing in the middle of that small Kansas street as the sun set over an empty house. He didn't mean it as poetry. He meant it as evidence, because by the time investigators entered the Beckett family's home that Friday evening, it looked as though life had been paused mid-breath. Dinner half-eaten, TV still on. And yet, every person who lived there was gone. The Beckett family, Michael, his wife Dana, their 12-year-old daughter Emily, and 9-year-old son Caleb, lived on a quiet corner of Maple Hollow, a farm community tucked off Highway 83. The kind of place where people still waved when they passed you, where dogs barked at the mailman, not at strangers, because there weren't any. On the night of March 12, 2011, a neighbor named Carol Jacobs noticed the porch light at the Beckett's home had stayed on unusually late. By morning, it was still on. By afternoon, the curtains hadn't moved. And by sunset, Carol called the sheriff. Deputy Owens arrived first, knocking politely before realizing no one was going to answer. The car was in the driveway. Both dogs were tied up out back. There were no signs of forced entry. He circled once, then called in backup. When they finally entered through the unlocked back door, the first thing Owens said was, "It smells like supper." The kitchen was tidy, but not staged. 2 plates of food had been pushed aside, half-eaten, pasta and chicken still on the forks. A pot on the stove had cooled with a thin film of grease. The TV in the living room was showing a late-night rerun. Emily's homework was open on the dining table. Caleb's shoes were by the couch. But the family, every last one of them, was gone. Detective Latham was called in that night from Dodge City. He'd been in law enforcement for 20 years. He'd seen runaways, domestic disputes, even murders. But something about this scene hit him differently. "They didn't run," he said in his first report. "They got up from dinner and walked out, together." Search teams canvassed every inch of farmland around Maple Hollow. The nearby creek was dredged. Drones were sent out the next morning. Nothing. No footprints in the mud, no tire marks leaving the driveway, no evidence of a struggle. Not even a single phone call or text after 7:18 p.m., the last outgoing ping from Dana's phone to her sister, a casual, talk later, love you. By Sunday morning, the Beckett case had moved from missing persons to full investigation. The Becketts were not a family that went unnoticed. Michael ran a feed supply business in town. Dana volunteered at the local elementary school. They had no known debts, no criminal record, no enemies, and yet investigators quickly realized something didn't add up. Inside the master bedroom, a drawer had been left open. Inside, Dana's wedding ring, her driver's license, and $300 in cash. In the garage, Michael's tool cabinet was locked tight, but the padlock was coated in fresh mud. Emily's laptop was open but wiped clean. No browsing history, no saved files. Caleb's baseball glove lay by the door, damp as if it had been outside. Forensics found a set of partial prints, unidentified, on the kitchen counter near the sink. But they didn't match anyone in the national database. That was the first moment it turned from a disappearance into something darker. The first theory was voluntary disappearance. Maybe they'd fled somewhere. But their bank accounts hadn't been touched. Their passports were still in the dresser. And the family dog had been left tied outside without food. The second theory was abduction. Yet no signs of a break-in, no ransom call, no vehicle seen leaving, not one eyewitness, despite neighbors being less than 100 yards away. The third theory, no one wanted to say out loud, that they'd somehow just vanished. But then came the discovery that shifted everything. Investigators pulled the Beckett's cell records and tower pings. Dana's last known location was the house, 7:18 p.m. Michael's phone disconnected minutes later. But at 2:47 a.m., 6 hours after they'd supposedly disappeared, a single ping appeared. It wasn't from any of their phones. It came from a prepaid device registered under a fake name. The location, a patch of farmland 6 miles north of Maple Hollow. When deputies reached that location the next morning, they found tire impressions, but not from a normal car. The tracks were wide, deep, spaced unevenly, like from an old utility truck. Beside them, in the dirt, was a spoon. A single stainless steel spoon from the Beckett's kitchen set. Detective Latham later described it as the most ordinary piece of horror he'd ever seen. That same afternoon, a local farmer named Henry Dawes reported something odd on his property, an old barn light turning on at night. He hadn't used the structure in years. Deputies responded, expecting trespassers. Instead, they found something stranger. Inside the barn, 4 folding chairs, arranged in a line, a blanket on the floor, and a child's drawing, crumpled but legible, of a house under rain, labeled home. DNA analysis later confirmed that one of the hairs on the blanket belonged to Emily Beckett. No fingerprints, no footprints, no bodies. Just that drawing, and the feeling that the case had crossed from logical to something else entirely. In the weeks that followed, search teams grew desperate. Flyers covered every utility pole in town. The Beckett family became the only topic anyone spoke of. Yet no new evidence emerged, until a month later, when the sheriff's office received a voicemail. It came from an unknown number. The recording was 31 seconds long, mostly static, but faintly, beneath the distortion, a voice, believed to be female, could be heard whispering, "We're still here. Tell him not to dig." Audio engineers later determined that the voice carried speech patterns consistent with Dana Beckett's, but her phone had been disconnected weeks earlier. The message had no digital signature, no traceable IP, just a timestamp and silence. Detective Latham never publicly commented on it, but 2 deputies resigned within a month. In early May, the state police brought in cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing on the Beckett property, but less than half a mile from the barn, near an abandoned well, the dogs began to react, scratching, circling, barking. The ground there was soft, recently disturbed. The well itself was boarded shut, the boards old but not original. When they pried it open, they found no bodies, just 3 items: a rusted lunchbox, a family photo of the Becketts at a county fair, and a torn piece of lined notebook paper with 3 words in a child's handwriting, "We're not gone." Forensics dated the ink. It was fresh, less than 2 weeks old. By summer, the investigation hit a wall. There were no suspects, no confirmed sightings, no ransom demands. The Beckett house sat boarded up, silent, while weeds grew high in the yard. But people kept reporting small things: lights turning on inside at night, curtains drawn, then open again, a smell, like cooked chicken, wafting through the air when no one was inside. Carol Jacobs swore she heard laughter one evening near the back porch. She said it sounded like Emily. She never repeated it to police. The Beckett case was formally closed in 2016, reclassified as missing, presumed deceased. The house was eventually auctioned to a new owner who gutted the interior, but when he replaced the floorboards, he found something lodged between them: a small recorder, battery corroded, casing cracked. Inside was a single minute of audio, barely audible under static. A voice, low, male, weary, said, "We thought we were safe." Then silence. Experts were never able to confirm who the voice belonged to. The recording now sits in the Kansas Bureau of Investigation Evidence Archive. No family remains to claim it. Detective Latham retired 2 years later. When asked in a 2020 podcast interview if he believed the Beckett family had truly vanished or been taken, he paused for nearly a full minute before answering. "I don't think they left that house," he said. "I just think we never found where they went." The Beckett house still stands on Maple Hollow Road. Locals say it's quiet now mostly. The porch light doesn't turn on anymore, but those who drive by at dusk claim they sometimes see movement behind the curtains. Not a ghost exactly, just the faint outline of a family sitting down for dinner. And if you stand still long enough, the story goes, you can smell it too. The scent of chicken and pasta. Warm, faint, waiting.